Wilson Morales from Black Film and TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
I was just asking Michael, does one need to watch the previous Bosch series to get an idea as to who these characters are? Starting off with you, Maggie.
I don't think so. I think it stands alone if it has to, and I think that if you were lucky enough to indulge in the Bosch universe, then your experience may be richer or more exciting. But I really do think that in setting out to make Ballard, our first mandate was we're making a different show. You know, we're honoring the past, but we're also going into the future with something that's new and unique.
Courtney, for you, this is something different from what I've seen you, and obviously you've been in a lot more comedic projects than this one. What was it like coming into this one and being all dramatics?
It's nerve-wracking. I was like, oh, this is not something I'm super skilled in, but I was so up for the challenge because this is exactly what I wanted my career to go. I love the comedy. The comedy's fun, but I do want to make sure that I can enter into any role that is given to me in such a beautiful way where I can still kind of hold on to who I am while also showing you a different side of me. So I was super excited to do this. Like, don't get me wrong, I was nervous, but it was also super exciting. And then when I met everybody, it felt so good to just be like, oh, okay, I can do this. It like reaffirmed me in a really beautiful way.
I was not aware until today that you were funny.
Oh,
So,
no, where
No
until today
funny bones
that
here.
now it's
No
on a
funny bones
comedy.
here.
what?
John, you're like the ultimate comedian. I've seen you in different projects. You play different roles. What was it about this character that had you say yes?
Well, you keep in mind every actor's opportunity to say yes comes from somebody asking you to do something. So that's first and foremost,
Yeah.
right? So reading the material, understanding that the world was going to be done with such excellence, created with such excellence, feeling that LA was a character in the show, because a lot of times you're not this city's geography is alive in this show, and I think that's so cool about Bosch and also Ballard now. And I loved that. I also loved the opportunity of working with Maggie. I was really excited to hear that she was doing it. That was a big draw. So there was a lot of things to make this something I would want to say yes to.
Maggie, when you came into this, as you look into the character, and Michael explained there's some similarities between you and the character. I want to hear you say, how do you relate to Ballard?
I mean, I relate in terms of like the drive and the determination to do what's right. I mean, I think that definitely a core principle that I love and believe in. Do I always do what's right? No, but do I want to? Yes. I was saying earlier that, there's a real finesse and patience that it takes to be a detective at the level of, these detectives that we're portraying. And I don't personally have that, but I do admire it and I watch it in awe. And it's something that I observed with my mentor and something that I implemented solely on what I observed from her that I was very impressed by. And I think that putting those types of women out into the world, I truly love, because one of the things about my mentor that I respect more than anything is that, yes, she came up in a boys' club. Yes, she was the first female detective. Yes, she was in this world that was very tough for her. She never complained and never made that the central focus of her life. She put her head down. She did her job well, and she's a very accomplished detective upon retirement. And so, I mean, I don't think there's anything better than somebody going, yeah, I have challenges, but you know what? I'm good at what I do, and I'm just going to keep doing it.
Credit to the writers that when you have a series, at some point, not all of the characters when you see them are the same by the time it ends. They're all flawed to some degree. There's something that, you'll see it fleshed out throughout the episodes. How do you, when you see these things happen, at what point do you say, okay, this is where they're going with the character? Courtney?
Oh, to be honest, I think from reading each individual script, I don't think I was super surprised. I knew that you could read in each individual script that either she's hiding something or she hasn't told something fully, or there's a chip on her shoulder, or there's something she's trying to prove. And I think as we continued and I kept reading the script, I was like, okay, it didn't feel like it surprised me. It felt like I was like, oh, there it is. now I know what she's either battling, or now I know what she wants to say, or now I know what she's trying to prove here. Like, I think it's just written so well that it wasn't like I was surprised. It was more like I was like, oh, thank God, they're feeding me exactly the questions I had. Now they're feeding me all the answers, and I think that's just great character development. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I said it's the summertime. We've got a lot of movies coming up. We've got a lot of streaming shows coming up. What's going to get an audience to catch up with this without them saying, "Well, I didn't see the other two series. Should I watch this?"
I think the story is so compelling. The whodunit of it all is so powerful, and it keeps you guessing all the way to the end and beyond. And I also love the personal stakes involved in each of the stories and how they affect the characters. I think that'll keep people not only coming to the show, but wanting to come back.
Maggie, for those who don't know, I'm including myself, will the series be like a procedural in a way where there's one particular case that they're trying to solve while there are other cases that will get solved, per episode?
Well, there's one overarching sort of case that is present throughout the season, obviously, that's the A storyline, right? But we obviously have B and C things that come in and a couple standalones, but mostly it's this one overarching really big case that has so many tentacles to it that does go off on tangents in different directions, but really all is centralized into solving this one thing. But it's done so well that I really think that from one episode to the next, you are on a ride, and it's very compelling to see where one case goes. And what's funny is that the cold case detectives that I've spoken to, even not our mentors, but other people who've done this, that is the way it happens. You think you're going in one direction, you're certain about something, and then one thing gets thrown in and everything gets thrown out, and you're starting over again. It's this constant sort of gerbil wheel. And we do see those wrenches thrown at these detectives in this, and you're so certain, and then it all gets taken away from you. So I think that is one of the hardest parts of their job.
Congrats on the series. Congrats on your performances. Let's get a season 2. We'll talk down the road. Take care, folks.
Your lips.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wilson Morales from Black Women TV. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. The franchise that never dies.
I like that. I like the sound of that.
So they're coming into Ballard. Does one need to watch the previous 2 series in order to get an idea who this character is if you haven't read the books?
No, not really. She stands on her own. She appeared in one episode, the final episode of Bosch, so she was introduced there, but it was a self-contained story. So I think anyone who stumbles into this show not knowing anything about books or previous shows, they're going to be pretty happy and quickly addicted to it, because I think Maggie Q just rocks. I think she just captures your attention and your imagination, and she'll take it from there.
Could you have done this without mentioning Bosch's name? I know you have him in there for an episode or so, obviously, to provide some continuity. But, did you think about doing this without having to mention it, even though it is part of that world?
Yeah, those were part of the discussions. Do we need to do that? And we could have told the stories without that. But, I mean, we have this guy from a show that has a lot of followers, being realistic about it, business-wise. It's kind of like, let him be an ambassador that can bring some of the viewership to this new show, and why not use that if that's something that is to our advantage. So we did that. I mean, I think less is always more. I mean, he's only in it a few times, but when he's in it, it's important. So we did build it so it wasn't a cameo. He adds to the story and is a needed part of the story. So that was the one thing when we discussed this, and it was like, if we're going to use him, let's use him in a proper way, that he contributes to the show, not just walks through it.
Is it, for those, like I said before, like, I'm coming into this new, even though I've known the previous 2 shows, but I've never got a chance to watch them in its entirety. So the question I'm asking is the same tone the same, or is it something totally different? that even though we're like saying, oh, it's Bosch, but with a female lead.
Yeah, no, I think if you there's a definite shift in tone from one to the other. The first show was, I think, darker. I mean, I know it was a darker show. This one has got more. It's opened up. I think it will appeal to a bigger audience. I think it's a wider look at Los Angeles. The Bosch show is very Hollywood centric. By design, we said we never want to go west of La Brea, which is a north-south street in Los Angeles, and we didn't have any of that kind of rule, if you will, when it came to Ballard. Ballard is someone who finds solace on the surfboard in the ocean, so that's already going to bring more sunlight and blue into our show. So I think people who are aficionados of the first show, the Bosch shows, are going to see a tonal change to their liking.
What makes Renée Ballard a complex character? I get a feeling like whenever we watch any show, whether it be a comedic series or a drama series, whether it's led by a guy or a woman, they're always complex. They're never just so happy. There's always something in the background that lurks.
Yeah, it's kind of a handicap that people fall back on, because it is easier to write about someone who's looking for something. Renée Ballard's a detective, so she's trying to find this hidden truth of who killed who. But there's also something going on about herself. She's trying to find out about herself. She's a very fierce, relentless character, and you got to ask, where does that come from? That's something we're exploring. I'm still exploring it in the books, but she has had issues from, she's abandonment as a child. And she went into this flawed bureaucracy called the LAPD, which does not treat women well. And she's had to overcome those type of things. And all that has built her character. It also makes, I think, the storytelling interesting to see how she deals with these kind of obstacles put in front of her. And that's how you connect characters to viewers. People who watch the show, the percentage of people who have actually solved a murder or even any kind of crime or have done police work is going to be very small. You got to connect with them on other levels. And I think it's this personal relentlessness, this personal internal search for what's missing in their lives. I think those are the connecting points of this show.
And then you have the supporting cast. Obviously, there are those there to help her, and there are those there to want her to fail, which is what you get in a lot of these procedural dramas. It's like, okay, for Ballard, she has to play the fence on both sides. Not only does she have to be a mentor to her team, but she has to obey the rules because it could all go away.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you connect viewers. I mean, because no one has that like a one-dimensional life. They're all trying to balance things and move through the raindrops without getting wet. And I think she does that well. And it's an important part of her personality. And I think so when she's on the screen and you can kind of see that these things moving behind her eyes, I really think that's an attractive thing, and I think that's what's going to make the show work for people.
What makes Maggie Q the right person to play Ballard?
What's really weird is that coincidentally, she has a real life history that's very close to the fictional history that I put in the books for Ballard. That is growing up in Hawaii, a father who served in the Vietnam War, and on his way back afterwards just stayed in Hawaii. So she kind of has similar experiences. She grew up surfing, that kind of thing, but that's just kind of minor stuff. What really made her the right person was that she has this unspoken fierceness in her eyes that, you see something on a page, something I've written in a book, and I can kind of describe, but when you see it in a person, you know it. I kind of knew it the first time I met her when she came in to talk about possibly wanting to do this role. I left that meeting saying, boy, I really hope she wants to do it, because I think she has it. She has this air about herself that's very self-confident, but also an attitude of relentlessness that I think is a key part of the Ballard character, and I'm glad we get to take it from Maggie to use for Ballard.
For yourself, how much have you learned and grown from adapting the books, to the series? Because now we're on your third one. So, like, what did you learn from the last one? You said, okay, I'm going to add this to this series. I'm going to take this out.
Myself, you know, I've been writing books for a long time, over 30 years, and that's a particular way of writing or creating. And I have this dimension where I go inside my characters' heads and I know what they're thinking and I'm communicating that to readers. You lose that internal thought when you go to writing a script and adapting something for the screen. And it took me a while to understand I'm probably not that good at it. So if you looked at the Bosch show, I wrote a lot of episodes in the early seasons, and then I wrote very few. I went a couple seasons without writing any, and that's kind of like, Clint. What is it that Clint Eastwood said? A man's got to know his limitations or something. I kind of knew that, and so the thing that I've learned from progressing from these shows is to find the people who are really good at doing whatever the job is and let them do it, and don't think you can do it. Just you wrote the books, that's great, but you don't know how to write a good script. You don't know how to direct a good episode, and so it's my learning process has been to learn to step back and kind of know my position or know my limitations.
As they say, there's no I in team. So when you have a whole team working together to create this, congrats on this. Let's keep it going. Let's get more seasons. I'm looking forward to see where these goes. We'll talk down the road.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.